Appreciate that on TikTok. Yep. Hey, yep. So, okay, live now on YouTube and Facebook, in addition to TikTok. Asylum Answer Show. I'm Brian Manning, political asylum lawyer. Leave me your questions in the comments. And I'm going to say a couple words about an important topic, and then I'm going to get to your questions. So go ahead and start asking them, okay? Thank you. Oh, thank you. Good to see. Hey, good to see you. You're always on these things. I appreciate it. Good to see you. Okay. How do you add a family member to your asylum case that's pending with the asylum office? So lots of you out there who watch the show all the time have had your asylum case pending for a long time at the asylum office, and a lot changes during that time, right? Some of you have had children, some of you have gotten married, some of you have gotten divorced, or circumstances change, right? Your family situation changes. And so I get asked all the time, Brian, how do I add a family member to my asylum claim? So there's two things that we're going to cover real quickly before I get to your questions. Go ahead and leave them in the comments. Also, let me know, where are you watching from today? What city and state are you in, and what country are you from? And I will be happy to see that. So, but before that, two things to cover. First of all, who can you add to your asylum claim? Who can get asylee status through you? Let's say you are what they call the principal applicant. This is the main person who's applying for asylum, and everything is really centered on you. As the principal asylum applicant, the asylum officer is asking whether you qualify for asylum, whether you personally meet the requirements. They really don't care about your family members, to be honest with you. They don't care about what they've been through in most cases. And they don't really care about much else. They want to know whether you, the principal applicant, qualify for asylum. That's the way to start off the show. Thank you, Alexander. I appreciate that. Very, very, very nice comment. The best lawyer, no doubt. Very kind of you. I hope you're doing well. All right. So principal applicant, right? And you as a principal applicant might want to add someone to your asylum case. So recall that on the asylum application form, it asks you, are you married? And if so, you have to give data for your spouse. And then it says, do you have children? And if so, you have to give data for your children. In each of those sections, for your spouse and for your children, there's a little line that says, do you want to include this person as a dependent in your asylum claim, or something like that. So how it works is you have to affirmatively say, yes, I want this person to basically get asylee status if I get asylum. But it's not quite that easy. Well, you can also say no if you want. And sometimes for various reasons, people do say that. But it's not quite as straightforward as that. And it's a little more complicated still if you didn't say yes originally, or maybe you didn't even have this family member, like you get married after you apply for asylum, so you didn't have their information at all on your original application. Well, what do you do to add them after the fact to your claim while it's pending before your interview? But first, so I'm going to get to that. But first, let me just say who you can add to your claim. Or this is actually the same as who can be a dependent in your case, whether you're starting out, like at the time that you're applying for asylum, or you're trying to add someone later. The same rules apply about who can be added to your case as a dependent. And when I say dependent, I mean someone who, if you get asylum, they're going to get asylee status through you. Okay. So first of all, as a spouse, if you're married, your spouse, your husband or wife, can get asylum status or asylee status through you if you win asylum. And hey, Eduardo, thanks for checking in from New York. Good to hear from you. Good to see you again here. So spouse, that's clear. Everyone knows that. So children is a little bit trickier because it's not all children of yours can get asylee status through you if you win asylum. Rather, they have to meet two qualifications. They have to be, at the time that you submit your asylum application, they have to be under 21 years old, and they have to be unmarried. Okay, they cannot be married. So if they're 19 years old, but they're married, they can't be a dependent in your claim. If they want to get asylee status, they're going to have to apply for it on their own, or their spouse could apply for it and list them as a dependent. But you cannot list a child as a dependent if they're married. Okay, so they have to be under 21 and married. So that's who you can list. But now, how do you do this? Let's say that I get this all the time, that people that have their case pending at the asylum office for years and they want to apply, they want to add, they get married and they want to add their spouse as a dependent. So can you do that, and how? Yes. Anytime before you get a decision in your case, you can ask to add a qualifying dependent. Now, this happens often when people get married, but it also happens when someone who is a qualifying dependent, meaning a spouse, or a child who is under 21 and not married, was previously not in the United States at the time you filed your application, if they were not in the United States, but now they're physically in the United States. Like maybe they came on a tourist visa or a student visa. And as long as they're not in deportation proceedings, then you can ask to add them to your case now that they're in the United States, because the person has to be in the United States for them to get asylee status through you when you win asylum. If they're abroad, you can petition to bring them here to the United States later after you win asylum, but that process takes a long time. It takes at least a year, usually longer, and it's kind of tedious. So it's not as good. It's better if you can have your dependent be here and get asylee status automatically. As soon as the moment that you're granted asylum status, they get asylee status. So that's ideal. So very often it's people that thank you, people that come that either get married after they apply, or one of their family members comes here, their spouse or their child who's under 21 and not married. So that's how it happens. But then how do you actually add them to your case? Okay, because previously either you didn't list their dad at all because the relationship didn't exist, or they weren't in the United States, but now you want to go back and change your answer and say, yes, I do want to include them as a dependent. So this has been a point of frustration with us, with several of the different asylum offices, because they all seem to have their different requirements for what you need to do and how you need to do it. But generally speaking, or let me give you what's probably the safest thing to do. Well, first of all, the safest thing is send an email to your asylum office that's hearing your case and say, I want to add a dependent to my case. What do I need to do? Okay. But and they may tell you a couple of specific things that I'm not going to mention here because they have different rules about this and they're constantly changing, and it may even differ depending on who you talk to or who answers your email in your asylum office, because they're not very good at being consistent about this policy. So at the Houston Asylum office, where we have a lot of cases, and that's where I used to work, we have cases at all the asylum offices, but we have a lot in Houston, and because that's where the law firm is based, and I used to work there as an asylum officer. Yeah, if you didn't know that, I'm an asylum lawyer now, but I used to be an asylum officer with the government, and before that, I was a diplomat. So in that capacity, I did the visa work. So I've done visas as well. So I've seen a lot of the aspects of your journey from the other side of the window or the other side of the desk. So all right. So here's some things though that you definitely have to do. You have to submit a new asylum application. And this is really weird. It's annoying. And it's weird because it's like, well, what do you do? Do you update it, like to add other information besides just changing the part that says, I have a spouse and I want to include them as a dependent in my case? What about the other sections? Like, do you change those if new information has been learned, like substantively, like the question that says, why are you afraid to go back? If something new has happened since you applied a long time ago, do you add in this new stuff? Do you go back in and make it better? For example, if you hire a lawyer and they're like, oh, that asylum application you submitted could use some work, you could have done a lot of things better. Do you go in and like change it to make it better? These are tough questions. And because it's like, which one is the asylum application? Which one are they considering the asylum application? The one you submitted originally, or this edited one, the revised one that lists your dependent or dependents as, or your family members as dependents? So that's one kind of thorny issue. Honestly, hey there. Let me just say hey real quickly to Jamal from Dallas, Texas. All right, Texas, where we are. And then Med Rains, thank you for joining us. It's a tough looking picture you got there, profile picture. Wow, that's intense. So we've been advising people to basically do everything exactly the same on their new application as they did with the old one, except for the part about actually adding a dependent. So some asylum offices will allow you to submit just the first 3 pages of this new updated asylum application, because those are the 3 that deal with like your biographical information and the spouse and children sections. But honestly, it's probably safer to do the whole thing, like 1 through 12, with a new signature and a new date, like from the time that you are now doing this edition. Don't backdate it to the time that you submitted your application a long time ago. So you got to do the asylum application, basically a revised asylum application that shows that, yes, I have this person who's a family member and I want them to be included in my case as a dependent. Second, you got to have proof of the qualifying relationship. And so this means for a spouse, you got to have proof of like a marriage certificate. And for a child, you have to have a birth certificate that shows that you're the parent. And you also have to have identification documents for them. Ideally, that's going to be the passport data page, which means the page of the passport that shows the person's picture and their biographical information. By the way, go ahead and go ahead. You can start leaving your questions in the comments. Yeah, I see a bunch of questions on TikTok. I'm going to get to those in just a minute. So Facebook, YouTube, go ahead, leave your questions in the comments as well, and I'll get to them in just a second. So child has to have the birth certificate, right? Identity documents is where we were. Passport photo the passport data page copy of it is what you want to have. If they have other identification, like a driver's license, I would include that, or maybe they already have a work permit in the US based on some other immigration case, I would include that as well. And then you do need a passport photo. Actually, I would print 2 passport style photos, and I would paperclip them to the top of the packet. I wouldn't staple them to like the page 9, just because these are handled a little bit differently and than an original application. And I would so we've talked. Let me summarize the things you're going to include. The updated asylum application. You're going to include also the passport data page to show identity. You're going to do the proof of qualifying relationship, so marriage certificate or birth certificate, passport photos. Here's the other thing: is the principal applicant, you have to write a statement that says, "My name is so and so. My asylum case is pending with your office. I want to add the following family members as dependents in my case," and you like list out their name, and we do their date of birth, and if they have an A number already from some other immigration case, include that as well. So, it should be clear. I don't really know why they require this actual statement, but it seems like all the offices do. So write that out, make sure it's signed and dated, and then you mail this packet to the asylum office. I would do a cover letter as well saying, hey, here's a packet that is for the purpose of adding my qualifying family member as a dependent to my asylum case. And I would ask for confirmation, say, would you please be so kind as to write me or call me and let me know when this has been processed and the person's been added to my case as a dependent. And then about a week after you mail that packet, I would follow up with an email and say, hey, did you get my packet? Could you also please send me an email to let me know when they've been added to the case as dependents? And then I would follow up with an email every couple of weeks until you get that confirmation. It can take a while. It's Houston, at least the Houston Asylum Office, there's like a queue for these kinds of tasks for adding a dependent. So it may be some weeks or even longer. So here's the good thing, though. Once you add a dependent, they are eligible to apply for a work permit and a social security card immediately. As long as you have already been waiting for 5 months since you applied for asylum, they don't have to wait for 5 months or a year or any certain amount of time on their own. As soon as they're put into the system, into the asylum office system that says, yep, they're a dependent in the case now, immediately, if your case has been pending for 5 months at least, they're eligible to go ahead and apply right away for the work permit and social security cards. So that's good news. A lot of people don't know that. They think, oh, once I get added, I'll have to wait a certain amount of time before I'm eligible as a dependent to get this status. So or to get this work permit. So the good news is you don't have to wait. Okay. So you might have problems with this process of applying for or requesting that a dependent be added to your case, we've had some struggles with this, with some really inconsistent requirements. But what I just listed off for you is the basics. All right. So that is what I wanted to cover about adding dependents. Now let's go to some questions. Okay. Ask me your asylum questions. Feel free, drop them in the comments. And I will be happy to try to address them. All right, let's start. All right, so I'm going to go to TikTok first. TikTok says, what to do. Who is this from? Fresh somebody. What to do if your asylum case is pending for 7 years? You should sue the government. I didn't have to hesitate there, did I? You can threaten to sue first. You can say, listen, if you don't give me my interview in the next 30 days, I'm going to have to sue you to get it. And then if they don't get, sometimes that will be enough. Sometimes they'll say, oh, okay, we don't want to fight this in court. Here you go. Here's your interview. If they don't, you have to decide, do you really want to sue? If you sue, this is what's called a mandamus lawsuit, mandamus. And you're filing a lawsuit in federal court saying, judge, will you please tell the asylum office that they have to give me my interview? And the thing is, the government's supposed to act in a reasonable period of time on any application or immigration case. And 7 years is absolutely not reasonable. You'll probably have success either by threatening or by suing if you do this, because 7 years is not reasonable. We recently had success with 2 clients. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Touched off Siri over there. We recently had success with 2 clients. Both have been waiting 5 results. I'll send them to Brian. Out of control. Both of them have been waiting for 5 years for their interview. Does that happen to you guys, that you say something that should not do it, but it invokes you know who, Siri or Google, and they start going off? So they've been waiting 5 years. 2 different guys, 5 years for their interview. They both sued. In both cases, right when they submitted the lawsuit or within 60 days, the government said, we don't want to really fight this one out. If you promise to take the case away, to drop the case against the government, we'll give you your interview in 60 days. And not only that, we'll also promise you to give you your decision within, I think it was 60 days also, after the interview. And so that was really good, because oftentimes you'll wait after the interview. I know you've been waiting 7 years for to get your interview, but there's also people who've been waiting for years to get the decision after their interview. So if you sue the government, you can probably get them to promise to give you your interview and to give you your decision within a certain amount of time after the interview. So that's what you should do. At 7 years, that's ridiculous, and you'll win. If you sue, you might be able to get it done without even actually suing, because the threat will be powerful. So, hey, Mo, thanks for joining us. Where are you coming in from? Where are you at right now? Let us know. Okay, this is an interesting question from Space MC. It says, what if I lost all my paper evidence? Will the scan copy work at the interview? Yeah. So Space MC, if you already submitted your evidence, like it sounds like what you're saying is that you mailed it and then you lost it, and you're wondering, is it okay to just have the copies of the interview? Yeah, that's okay. In fact, you don't even need to take the copies with you. You really don't need to take the copies with you. So you're not going to be able to look at them. They don't let you like consult your notes during the interview or anything. And it doesn't really help to have copies. For people that do have the originals of evidence they've submitted, you should take those. Like if someone sent you a letter, let's say someone left a threatening letter at your doorstep at your house, it says, we're going to get you, we're going to kill you because we don't like your religion or something. If you have that original letter and you made a copy of it and you submitted it with your asylum application, and you still have that original, you should take that original with you to the interview. But just taking a copy of it won't really help. Sometimes the officers want to see the originals of documents because they may suspect that there's fraud, and sometimes they can confirm that when they see the original. Just for certain reasons, originals, when you see the original of a document, it's sometimes easier to tell that it's been manipulated or forged, or there's something not real or authentic about it. But to answer your question, You're saying, do I need to take the scan? Well, you say, will the scan copy work at the interview? You don't even need to take it. Like you don't need to take copies of evidence to your interview. Okay. You only need to take originals of evidence to your interview if you still have them. Yeah. Alicia says, Siri gone rogue. I said it again. I should have said I need to unplug it. Siri gone rogue. Yep, it happens. Yeah, so Mo, you're in the same position as the question I just addressed about waiting for your asylum interview. You've been waiting 6 years. The last guy had been waiting 7. My 2 clients who had success suing the government, and both won their asylum. They did well at their interviews, and they got asylum, by the way. They had been waiting 5 years. So you should sue. All right, Mo. One question that I always get when I talk with people about possibly suing the government is, well, is it going to hurt my asylum case? Like, is it going to make me look bad? Is it going to look too aggressive? And are they going to be mad at me and take it out on me at my interview and deny me because of this? No, I don't think so. I'm not going to go into detail about it here, but I don't think the asylum officers know that someone has threatened or sued. I never knew when I was an asylum officer that someone had threatened or sued. That information just didn't make it into the asylum file. And I think that's still the case. I think the officers still don't know. Okay. So, and even if they do know, I don't think they really care. All right. It's just not a big deal. In the United States, we're very litigious. We sue all the time. It's just not a big deal. Okay. All right. Let's go back over to TikTok. So, what does that say? Someone says, I'm still waiting for my decision. I did my asylum interview last year in March. Yep. That's a bummer that you're waiting that long. It happens sometimes. I would start by emailing to follow up, and then I would call. And like a week later after you email, if you haven't gotten a response, I would call and I would follow up with another email another week later saying, just wanted to check on the status of my case. It's been a year since my interview. Is there anything that I can provide you with to help you make a decision in this case? I'll be happy to do so. Okay. And remember, if it takes much longer, you could consider suing, especially if you already waited a while for your interview. Because remember I said earlier that the government's supposed to act in a reasonable period. Well, they're supposed to give you your decision within a reasonable period. So if you waited for 3 years to get your interview, then you got it and you waited another year. Well, in total, you've been waiting 4 years for the government to do its job and make a decision in your case. So you could consider, suing the government. Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah. Good question. Med Rain says, basically the question is, they say, I asked the congressman to make the case inquiry to the asylum office. Will the fact that I asked for help from Congress have bad effects? No. Just like suing won't hurt your case, doing what's called a congressional inquiry won't hurt your case. Having a congressman, like a senator or a member from the House of Representatives, inquire about your case, it won't hurt it. It also probably won't help it. I was the congressional liaison for a few months, one of them at the Houston Asylum Office, kind of like the link between the Asylum Office and the Congressperson's office. And so I dealt with this sort of thing a lot, and I can tell you that it doesn't help. The senator's office sends an email to the congressional liaison at the Asylum Office and says, I'm writing to inquire about Jane's case. We hope it will be resolved quickly. Could you please give us a status update? And then the Asylum Office writes back and says, it's pending. That's it. Like they just say, we're working on it, and that's it. And nothing else really happens usually. So it's not going to hurt, but don't expect it to really help either. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So, Chowdhury says, I have a master calendar hearing in June. In what city? Chowdhury, tell us in what city your master calendar hearing is. So for those that don't know, that's a reference to a case that's going on in court, immigration court, meaning the person is in immigration court or deportation proceedings. The government's trying to deport them, and I assume this is an asylum case. That they're raising asylum as a defense, saying, "Don't deport me. I should get asylum. Please give me asylum," as a what's called relief from removal. Okay. All right. This is a good question. This is an interesting question. David says, Brian, can I use my country's recent political unrest to expedite my asylum case decision? Just writing an email to the asylum office to talk about it? Thank you. Thanks for your question. No, it won't help. It won't help you to. It won't help to get a decision and to push the decision forward, to get them to actually make the decision and mail it to you. It won't help unless you have family members there who you could qualify to bring to the United States if you were to win asylum, and the developments there have put those people at danger, greater risk. Then that could be an expedite grounds. So if you have a spouse or a child who is under 21 and not married, or let me rephrase that, a child who at the time that you filed was under 21 and is still unmarried. I should have said this earlier. That the child thing is they have to have been under 21 at the time that you filed, that you submitted your application. But the unmarried aspect keeps being a requirement even after you file. So they have to still be unmarried for them to get asylee status through you. Basically, if those people were in the United States, David, you would be eligible to include them as dependents in your asylum case. And because they're not in the United States, you can't do that. However, if you win asylum, you'll be eligible to do a petition to eventually, after like a year or two, bring them to the United States on the basis of your asylee status. And if someone in that position is in danger, you can use that as a grounds to expedite your asylum case, including whether that's to get the interview or to get a decision. Because it's like, hey, they're in danger. And if I win asylum, I should be able to get them out of there and get them to safety. But I want to start that process as soon as possible. And I can't do that until I win asylum. So could you please give me a decision so I can at least know whether I get asylum and so I can start this process if I do. So that's how you do that. And to do the expedite request, I recommend both physical mail and also including it in an email. And you can address it to the director of the asylum office. And you explain what the situation is and why that family member is in danger and why getting your case decided would help you to get them out of danger, which is, I'd be able, if I win asylum, I'll be able to bring them here, and I want to get that process started as soon as possible. So can we please make a decision? Sir, where are you located? So our principal office, our office is in Houston, Texas, but we help people all over the country to secure their future in the United States through asylum. So we have clients all over the country. So wherever you are, it doesn't matter. We can help you no matter where you are, or where you are doesn't dictate whether we can help you. On Facebook and YouTube, you're going to see my phone number up there, 713-909-0401. It won't show up on Twitter, but on Twitter, if you click on my profile link and go to my profile page, our phone number is there, 713-909-0401. Okay, I got to go in a couple minutes, but I'm going to take a couple more questions. So let's go. Yeah, there's that number. All right, let's go back to TikTok. Let's see. Okay. So, okay, this is a common question. The person says, I never received an NTA. I filed for asylum with the field office and they accepted it. Do I need to worry about court? Maybe. So, well, if you haven't heard anything from the court yet, that's a good sign, and there might not be a notice to appear, meaning your case will be heard by the asylum office. But it's still possible that there does already exist in the case a notice to appear that you just don't know about, and the asylum office may send your case with that notice to appear over to the court to start deportation proceedings against you. So to back up, what this person's asking about is cases where look, you came to the border, and you went to a border crossing point, or maybe you crossed illegally without trying to not be caught, but you were caught, and you said, I want asylum. And they let you go. They let you into the country. In that case, usually they give you a notice to appear. And this is the document that once it is filed with the immigration court, it formally starts the deportation proceedings against you. And when that happens, you cannot apply for asylum with the asylum office. Rather, you apply with the immigration court. But what happens is sometimes this notice to appear exists. Like maybe you were given a copy of it, but ICE, the agency that runs the deportations, they haven't gotten around to filing it with the immigration court. And so if you call the immigration court, they might say, sorry, we don't have your information here. There's no case for you that's pending with the immigration court. And when that happens, you can't file. They won't let you file with them. If you try to file for asylum with the immigration court, they'll say, sorry, we can't accept this. You're not in the immigration court's jurisdiction. You're not in immigration court. And so in that case, you have to file with the asylum office. But sometimes the asylum office will say, oh, we see in the system that there exists a notice to appear for this case. Therefore, we think that should go to the court, right? You shouldn't be with USCIS, with the asylum office. You have to apply with the immigration court. That's wrong. But sometimes they think that mistakenly, and so they reject your asylum application. And you have to try 2 or 3 times and explain to them in the cover letter, look, there has not been a notice to appear filed with the immigration court. Therefore, you have jurisdiction over my case, USCIS. Therefore, please accept this. And eventually, they should accept it. But sometimes, or where there is a notice to appear, but it has not been filed with the immigration court, USCIS policy is to send the packet with the notice to appear over to the immigration court, and that gets the notice to appear filed with the immigration court, and that starts deportation proceedings against you. So to the person who asked the question, in your case, you said there's not an NTA. You said never received an NTA. So we don't know if one exists. But if you filed for asylum a while ago and the asylum office accepted it, and you haven't gotten a letter that said from them that says, hey, we're transferring this to the immigration court, and you haven't gotten a letter from immigration court saying, hey, a hearing is being scheduled for you. Well, first of all, you should check on the immigration court website. Just Google EOIR case status. Again, EOIR case status. And on that page that you get to, the top result, put in your A number, your alien number, or foreigner number that was you got on the asylum receipt notice from the asylum office, and you can see whether there's a case for you. When you click enter, if your case has been filed with the immigration court, your name will pop up and it will say next hearing and judge, and it'll show you that info, or it might say none scheduled, but at least your name will show up. But if you click enter and nothing, and your case is not pending with the immigration court, the NTA has not been filed there, it will say no case found for this A number. And that tells you, okay, it's still not with the immigration court. Now, it could still possibly end up there. The asylum office could find out that an NTA exists for it and send it over there. But if you filed a while ago and that hasn't happened for several months and you're not aware of an NTA existing, then you may be okay in the sense that you may have your claim heard by the asylum office. Okay. So that's good because then you're not in deportation proceedings, and you get at least 2 chances at it at the asylum office. And if you don't have success there, in immigration court. Okay. Okay, this is a good question. Going back to what we talked about earlier about adding dependents. If the dependent spouse, thanks Alicia for this, if the dependent spouse leaves the U.S. with the main with the application pending, what are the consequences for the dependent? Nothing. As long they have to be back in the country when the decision is made, at the moment the decision is made, in order for them to get asylee status through you. Technically, like USCIS is, at least when I was an asylum officer, we were not checking dependent status. Like we weren't trying to find out how they left the country. Are they back? Unless we had some reason to believe that they had left the country, then we assumed they were in the country and they would get asylee status when we granted asylum. But like if, at least in theory, your dependent, if they leave the country and they're not here when you win your asylum case, they will not get asylee status. And you'll be able to petition for them to come here on the basis of your asylum status, your asylee status, but it takes a long time. That's the process is done through form. The application form is called I-730 and I-730. But if they just like leave and come back, they go on vacation or go for a work visit or whatever to somewhere else, and they come back before you have your interview, before you get your decision, doesn't matter at all. It's not relevant unless your case is built around something that suggests that, like if they go back to your home country where you fear persecution and you're saying in your case, oh, they're targeting my whole family, they're going to kill us as soon as we set foot in the country, and then your spouse goes back there, that might not look good, right? But absent that, no, it's not. It's not a problem, generally speaking, for them to leave and then come back for a dependent. That is right. So let's see. David says, "Thanks again for your help. You are welcome." My pleasure, David. Okay, last one. Bieran says, "Can't wait to talk to you next week, April 19th. I assume that means you've got an asylum strategy session scheduled with me. On Facebook and YouTube, I'm going to post a link that you can use if you want to talk to me in an asylum strategy session. That's a consultation where we're going to talk about your situation, whether you've already applied and you want to strengthen your case and be prepared for the interview, or perhaps you are just about to apply, you're thinking about applying, and you want to know whether you should apply, whether you have a decent case or not. We'll discuss those things in an asylum strategy session. So I'm going to post that link in a comment on Facebook and YouTube, and then on TikTok, just Google Manning Asylum Law, and you'll get my website. And you can do that online. You can call also 713-909-0401, or you can use a link on my website. The website's manningasylumlaw.com to schedule a consultation with me. But yeah, I can't wait to talk to you either. Thank you. Looking forward to it. Okay. So what documents are required for political asylum? This question is from TikTok. Real quick. So an application form I-589. Form I-589. That's the application form. You have to, if you're applying in paper, like mailing it in, you have to also include a passport style photo. If you're applying online, you don't have to do this. The instructions say to, but it'll be accepted without the photo if you apply online. You need identity document, like the best thing for that is your passport data page that shows your picture. And to be honest with you, those are the only things that are required is identity. And if you have access to your immigration history, what's called your I-94, if you came on a visa, that's the document that shows that you, when you last entered the country and like where and what status, you should try to include that as well. But really, like to be accepted, really it's just your identity, your application form and identity document. That's the bare minimum. You should apply with a whole lot more. In my opinion, by far the best thing is to submit everything ahead of time, or everything with the application that you want the officer to consider. So people traditionally write what we call a personal statement or a declaration, where you explain in a few sentences what's happened. Not a few sentences, a few pages. 3, maximum 4. I'd say 3 is best. 3 pages explaining what's happened and why you're afraid to go back to your country. Now, that sounds easy, but if you want it to be truly effective and to like set the stage for your case, to where the officer's thinking, you know what, based on these documents, I already think this person's eligible for asylum before you even have your interview, then you need to do this with some serious care and attention. And at least right now on YouTube, you can find a video where I talk about this at length. It's called Crafting the Perfect Personal Statement. If you go into YouTube and search Crafting the Perfect Personal Statement, you'll find that. Talk in detail about how to do this there. And so people usually submit that and evidence. If there's evidence that supports your case that shows, that things that you're saying happened really did happen. Things like letters from witnesses, documents like medical records. I mean, there's lots of different stuff that could possibly be helpful in a case. So evidence, you should submit evidence as well. In my opinion, it's a good idea to hire a lawyer who will write a legal brief in which they explain exactly why you're eligible for asylum. Now, most lawyers don't do this. I was shocked when I was an asylum officer to learn that lawyers don't do this normally. They don't write out an explanation of why you should get asylum. And that shocked me. And it's a huge missed opportunity. And I do that. It's a key part of the case. I want to provide a roadmap for the officer for how to get to the answer yes in your case in the easiest way possible. And a major way that I do that is through my legal brief, where I set forth exactly why you're eligible for asylum. And then I also cite to and then include behind my brief what we call country of origin information, COI, country of origin information, where we provide a bunch of resources like reports, news articles, and things like that that help support your case, that speak to the different elements that we need to address to show the officer why you qualify for asylum. So those are the things that I think you should submit with your asylum application. And there's more that you can do if you want to do it really, really well. You can do a timeline where you create like a timeline that you learn about like in school that shows the officer the key events in your case, like the different threats you've received and the different, if you were physically harmed or anything else that's like a key element of your case that shows them when they happened. Because here's a little bit of insight into the asylum officer world. When the asylum officer reads your application and they read your personal statement, most of them, the first thing they do is they make a timeline on a Word document or something like that. They'll put a date, the first date that appeared of like the first time you were threatened or harmed, or maybe when you joined your political party or changed your religion or whatever it is that's relevant to your case. They'll put the date and they'll type out a couple words, converted to Christianity or threatened for first time by rival political party. And they'll make a timeline, like they'll just do like bullet point timeline type thing of the major incidents. Well, if you can do that for them, all the better. That's one of the things that I do with my clients. One of our goals in working together is to make the officer's life as easy as possible. Okay. We want to get them to the answer yes in the easiest way possible. We want to do their job for them. Okay. So you can make a timeline that can help with that, make their life easier. All right. So basically, yeah, that should be your goal, is do things to make their life easier. Okay. Gotta go. That's the end of the Asylum Answer Show for today. So TikTok, thank you. Everyone on Facebook and YouTube, I appreciate you being here. Good chatting with you as always. My name is Brian Manning, and again, I'm a political asylum lawyer. My law firm helps people all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. So give us a call if you want to set up a time to talk with me or my team about how we might be able to help you and your family. All right. That is it. Thank you. And we're going to be live again very soon. And come back and see us. Check out my YouTube channel, Manning Asylum Law. Go to YouTube and search for Manning Asylum Law and check us out on YouTube and subscribe. All right. Thanks. See ya. Thank you. Very kind of you. I appreciate that. Nice.